Hi everyone, we're going to get started in just a few minutes. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today. My name is Maddie Hood. I'm one of the Human Resources interns here at Ryan Specialty Group. We're super excited to have the Lakeview Health team here today to present us with another awesome webinar. We really value employees' well-being here at RSG, and this is one of the many great tools to support that. Hopefully you were able to access the Calm app that was rolled out yesterday, and definitely be on the lookout for more wellness programs in 2021. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Judy.
Thank you very much, Maddie. And we very much appreciate the opportunity to be here today to present on Managing Holiday Stress COVID edition. Our presenter today is Philip Warwick. He is a licensed mental health counselor and clinical manager at the Star of Lakeview, which is our treatment program for men, treatment for substance use disorder. Philip has a bachelor's degree from Central Florida University, a master's in mental health counseling from the University of South Florida, and he will present today with an opportunity for questions at the end. You have a chat box, a Q&A section, that is available to you, and I encourage you that throughout the presentation, as you have questions, go ahead and post those, and we will have that ready to ask Phil at the end. And then there will be a recording of this that will be available. HR will send it out, so be looking for that so that you can go back if you want to review this information at any time in the future, and perhaps share with some coworkers that weren't able to attend today some positives that you take away from it, so that hopefully they will be encouraged to review the materials as well. With that, I will turn it over to Phil and we'll get started.
Thank you very much, Judy. I appreciate the introduction, and thank you everyone for joining us today. The goal for the presentation today, you can see on the first slide here, Managing Holiday Stress COVID Edition. So we're going to be talking about a lot of the factors that contribute to holiday stress, some of the consequences of that holiday stress, with a specific emphasis on the impact that COVID has had on that as well. I'm going to be building off of some of the past presentations I've done to include some additional coping skills that can be used to help reduce stress and relieve stress, so that hopefully everybody can make it through the holidays happy and excited to start the new year. You can see in the picture we have here, the goal is to avoid your holidays looking like that top picture of the female with their hands over her head there. Hopefully we'll have a much less stressful, easygoing holiday. No throwing ornaments like the bottom picture either. We want that nice middle picture of hot cocoa and good times throughout the holiday season. So for an overview of what exactly we're going to be talking about, one of the things that I really wanted to focus in on in this presentation, just because I thought it would be interesting for you all to know, one, but also I think for a lot of people that kind of tangible hands-on learning can be more impactful. So I really wanted to demonstrate what's going on inside of the brain when we experience higher levels of stress. What actual mechanisms are firing that's causing us to feel stress, and then obviously the consequences of that stress. And so we'll talk a little bit about what's going on in the brain. I won't focus super heavy on it, but I do want to at least kind of overview it a little bit. Then we'll jump into some of the common stressors that we experience during the holiday season. Since we are a little bit later in the season now, we have Christmas in a week and New Year's in about 2 weeks. Some of you already may be experiencing some of these stressors. So it'll be kind of interesting to even maybe hear some feedback at the end of the presentation if you guys have experienced some of these stressors and some of the consequences of them, or if you've been able to utilize some of these coping skills in a way to help, again, reduce that stress level in your lives. We'll look at some statistical evidence surrounding the holidays and what the statistics say about people dealing with stress in the holidays. Are they experiencing more of it or are they not? And it's pretty telling, obviously, the studies that they've done in terms of the increase in stress levels that people experience during the holiday season. We'll take a look at the unique challenges that 2020 poses. Specifically, I'm talking about COVID and the impact that it's had and our ability to kind of function normally around the holiday season. We'll look at some different strategies that we can use to enjoy the holidays in a way that protects us and our families with the COVID pandemic going on. And then lastly, we'll also actually, when we're looking at that too, I also included some slides that talk a little bit about the CDC and their recommendations for staying safe around the holidays. So I will touch on that briefly. I'll give you some more resources so that if you want more information on that, you can obviously search that out pretty easily. And then lastly, we will look at some of the practical tools and strategies that are easy to implement and can be very, very effective to make the holiday season more enjoyable, again, for both you, your family, and the people you celebrate it with. I also threw in a few pictures of some of my favorite holiday movies throughout the presentation for a couple of reasons. One being so I could show off some of my favorite holiday movies and hopefully get you guys in the spirit a little bit, but also as a reminder that during the holiday season, it is so important that we stop what we're doing, we take a break, we enjoy some of the, if watching a holiday movie is your thing, or if baking cookies or whatever it is, we always need to stop and remember to enjoy those things. And really take a few minutes out of our day to sit down with family and just enjoy the holiday season with all the hectic stuff that's going on around us. Of course, this is from Christmas Vacation, one of my favorite holiday movies. Again, the goal is to not create a stressful environment like was done in this movie and hopefully have a lot less stress around the holiday season. I'll also say about this movie, I've said this before, my wife hates this movie and I love it. And so I get to watch that holiday movie all by myself each year, although I have not watched it yet this year, but I will. I promise I will make time to sit down and watch that one. So diving right into it, the first thing we're going to touch on, again, like I said, is what's going on in the brain when we're experiencing higher than regular levels of stress. So there is something called a shifting set. And what a shifting set is, a type of executive functioning, a set of mental skills that helps us get things done. So this is sort of that prefrontal cortex, and it's responsible for time management, attentiveness, planning and organization, remembering details. A really, really important thing that it's also in charge of is emotional regulation. And we'll talk more about that as I go through this presentation. So updating or shifting cognitive strategies is what we do oftentimes to respond to changes in the environment. And so what that means is as the holidays approach and we have more things that we're piling on, more planning, more attentiveness that's required, more remembering details, it'll cause us to change that shifting set and update it with all those new potential stressors. The holidays often require us to keep track and pay attention to a much higher number of responsibilities than we typically do throughout the rest of the year. And it's that shifting set which can be hard for us at any point of the year, which becomes particularly pervasive around the holidays because of all those added stressors, all of those added items that we put on our to-do list that we're trying to get done in preparation for the holidays and when we're executing the holiday planning as well. This quote does a really good job of kind of summarizing what I was saying. Because the holiday season often requires us to keep track of and pay attention to a greater number of responsibilities than usual, the brain's prefrontal cortex goes into overdrive. Over time, a high level of demand can decrease memory, halt production of new brain cells, and cause existing brain cells to die. Fortunately, holiday stress is a special kind of stress, an acute reaction to an immediate threat. What that means is that with it being an acute reaction, meaning that after the holidays are over, when we get into January, all those stresses subside and we typically rebound pretty effectively, and we're able to get back to kind of that normal functioning level. But throughout the holidays, well, we are experiencing that additional stress. Again, that prefrontal cortex is very affected, and that's where we see those issues arise with an increase in stress, which again can affect emotional regulation pretty heavily, irritability, things like that, increased anxiety, even depressive symptoms can appear as a result of that shifting set occurring. Again, another one of my favorite holiday movies, Elf. This is another one that I actually have not watched yet this year. I do like it quite a bit. Hopefully, I'll get a chance to watch this one before Christmas rolls around, but we'll see how it goes. But let's look at a few of the more common stressors that we experience throughout the holiday season. Again, these are things that a lot of people, I'm not saying that you all will experience every single one of these, but I'm pretty positive that the majority of you will be able to at least relate to a couple of them as I go through this list here. The first one, in terms of holiday stressors, is getting it all done. So this is kind of the beginning of the season, and we have this laundry list of all these tasks that we need to complete in preparation. Everything from getting the house ready, putting up the lights, cooking meals, having the children home from school. There's all different kinds of additional stressors that can come into play in terms of getting it all done. So we have this laundry list of stuff, and when you look at that list of all these things and none of them are checked off yet, it's going to start to build up that anxiety or that stress in our lives to get everything done. The next one being cost. Cost is a huge factor for a lot of people around the holidays. The holidays can be very expensive, especially if you're hosting family members or if you're buying presents for a lot of people. In fact, when I get to the statistics slide a little bit later in this presentation, we'll actually look at the effect that cost has in terms of increasing stress levels around the holidays. It's one of the biggest stressors that people face during the holiday season, just having the finances to be able to afford everything for everybody. And then, of course, you throw COVID on top of that, and it can create somewhat of a perfect storm. Next, one of the bigger stressors is image. Everybody has, and I kind of relate this back. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of the kind of Facebook phenomena, where everybody's trying to present themselves in the best light on Facebook, have the best filters, the best pictures, the best life ever on Facebook. Well, image plays into that as well around the holidays. Everybody wants to have the image of the happy family. Everything's going right. Everything looks perfect. And you're setting a lot of expectations. And this is one of the stressors that's down even lower. A lot of expectations that can be considered unreasonable when you really break it down and look at the important things, or you really look at what's important to you around the holidays. So image can be a big factor. Family can be a huge stressor. I don't need to elaborate a whole lot on that, but obviously more family members, if you have family visiting or even family that you're remotely visiting through some of the virtual platforms, it can still create stress in your life, having family around and trying to find unique ways to accommodate their needs, especially this year when we have to be a little bit more creative with how we integrate family into our holiday season. Isolation is another big stressor. Everybody's different. And I'll tell you that this year specifically, it's a little more difficult with the isolation factor because of COVID and the fact that we are being told that the best way and the safest way to celebrate the holiday is with the people that you live with in your own home, and to not have family, outside family or friends over for the holidays. So that isolation can play a bigger piece this year in terms of increasing stress levels. Traffic and crowds are a huge stressor. They're a huge stressor year round. I can attest when I'm driving home from work and I'm stuck in traffic, I will have to do some deep breathing sometimes to make sure things don't boil over, right? And so traffic at any time of the year can be a pain. And then you factor in the holiday rush, the additional cars on the road. It can create quite a bit more stress. Crowds and shopping centers, as we're trying to find unique ways to get gifts but still remain safe with COVID going on, can create quite a bit of stress. Parties are another big stressor. And then, of course, you factor in, like I've said, with almost all these, the safety that we have to add in as a result of COVID. So, what is the plan for attending parties? How do we go about it in a safe way? These things can all add to the stress level that you're experiencing around the holidays. Exhaustion is another big stressor. You're working, you're working full time. You have the holidays approaching. You have a whole list of things you're trying to get done on that, and check off all those boxes. It's going to lead to exhaustion, which is going to increase stress levels if you don't have some healthy coping skills to help you deal with all that's going on around you. Yearly accomplishments was another really big common stressor for people. This is kind of the idea of, you have those target goals that you want to finish before the end of the year, and then you look at that list of things 2 weeks before the end of the year, and you say, oh my gosh, I haven't even started half of these things. So tempering those expectations a little bit is a big piece of dealing with those stressors. Unreasonable expectations. And again, I tie this one pretty closely to image as well. But setting unreasonable expectations for what you want your holiday to look like and be like can set yourself up to be disappointed if you don't meet those expectations. Especially right now with COVID, we've had to kind of change and alter what our expectations are. And so asking ourselves, have we done that in a way that's going to be appropriate and reasonable is what we have to be doing this holiday season. And we'll talk more about that expectation piece as I continue through this presentation in a couple slides here. Diet, exercise, and sleep. I put diet, exercise, and sleep as stressors in almost every presentation I give. And the reason being, and I've talked about it before, and the reason I put it in there is because these are some of the simplest changes you can make in your life to reduce stress. And there's some of the reasons that people have, or one of the biggest reasons why people have high levels of stress, because they're not taking care of their diet, they're not exercising regularly, and they're not using an appropriate sleep schedule. And so in terms of huge stressors, diet, exercise, and sleep are one of the biggest. And in terms of one of the best coping skills for dealing with stress, having an improved diet, having regular exercise, and having a sleep schedule are some of the best tools you can use to combat that stress. And so I always make sure I put that in every presentation. We'll talk about it slightly more a few slides from now. And then lastly it is all too much. I chose to bookend the holiday common stressors with getting it all done and it's all too much. So at the beginning of the season, we kind of have this list of all these things that we know we need to get done. It can be daunting, it can be unreasonable at certain times. And then at some point during the holiday season, maybe a few weeks or a week before Christmas, like where we're at right now, you look at that list and you come to terms with the fact that it's just all too much and it can cause you to shut down and experience heightened levels of stress, knowing that you may not accomplish every goal that you set out. And again, that kind of goes to that unreasonable expectation piece and how we can adjust that so that even if we don't meet all of our expectations, we can still enjoy the holiday season in a healthy way with family and with friends. So this is a list. This is by no means all of the holiday stressors that are out there, but this is a pretty good kind of umbrella list of a lot of the common stressors, and most of the other ones can kind of fall underneath one of these categories in one way or another. I wish this is kind of the downside of doing them virtually rather than in person, is because I typically would ask for hands in terms of how many people have experienced some of these stressors thus far throughout the holiday season. But I'm sure if I did do that for you all, I would see a lot of hands going up for experiencing some of these stressors, not all of them, but at least some of these stressors thus far through the holiday season. So now that we know what the stressors are, the next thing we want to look at is what are the consequences of not addressing these stressors, not coping with this stress in an appropriate way. So some of the symptoms and consequences of stress will include things like headaches, sleep disturbances, fatigue can be a huge one, exhaustion, difficulty concentrating. And again, that difficulty concentrating is one of those cognitive issues that arises when that prefrontal cortex is trying to track all of those new tasks that you've added to your shifting set throughout the holiday season, that difficulty concentrating, as well as that short temper, because as we remember, emotional regulation is tied very closely to that prefrontal cortex. And so when we start to see that increase in stress, our ability to manage our emotions kind of goes out the window, not completely, but more than it typically does. And so we have a much shorter temper. We can snap at people a little bit easier. We can also experience, again, the symptoms of anxiety and even depression as a result of that. Upset stomach is another symptom and consequence of stress. Low job satisfaction and morale, muscle aches. And actually in this presentation related to muscle aches, I have a progressive muscle relaxation exercise that I'm going to introduce to y'all that I think, at least in my life, works wonderfully, and a lot of the patients I see works wonderfully in their lives as well. And I want to offer it to you all as a tool to help reduce those stress levels and muscle aches. And so I'll introduce that to you here in a little bit. It's one of my favorite coping skills for dealing with stress and anxiety, actually. Loss of appetite can be a big consequence of stress. Change in behavior while at work, and decline in productivity and work performance are all consequences of stress. So we have a pretty long list of how stress can affect us throughout the holidays. And that's why it is so important to be honest with yourself and acknowledge if you are feeling stressed, if you're experiencing stress. Because if you're not honest with yourself, then you're not going to do anything to start to heal from that stress. But if you're willing to be honest with yourself, then you'll be able to use a lot of these coping skills that we're going to talk about, and hopefully reduce a lot of that stress that you're experiencing. Another one of my favorite holiday movies, I actually did get to watch this one just a couple weeks ago, and I'll note two things about this movie that were of interest to me when I was rewatching it. The first was Poor Kevin McAllister, because when I was a kid and I watched this movie, I didn't have the insight, I guess, to see just how mean they are to poor Kevin. But when I rewatched it this time, it's like his whole family almost bullies him as they're dealing with all the stress that they're experiencing, preparing to go on their trip. They take out a lot of that aggression on poor Kevin McAllister, and he ends up being left home alone. Again, it's a really good quality holiday movie. I do recommend it. I'm sure everybody's seen it, but it's always fun for a rewatch and pretty entertaining at that, and kid friendly. So you can watch that one obviously with your children. But let's look at some of the statistics that are around the holiday stress. So 69% of adults experience increased stress as a result of lack of time around the holidays. So again, this goes into setting lofty expectations, putting too many things on your plate, and then not having enough time to complete all of the tasks. This can also be contributed to poor time management skills. And so looking at your time management and how you're able to manage different tasks and different time frames can be a good way to address this one as well. 69% of adults experience increased stress as a result of perceived lack of money around the holidays. So this is that statistic I was telling you about at the beginning, when the cost of the holiday season is one of the biggest contributing factors to increased stress around the holidays. Having enough money, setting yourself up with the expectation that you need to buy presents for everybody or have the nicest things for everybody, and then trying to figure out where that cost is going to come from. How are you going to manage it? Creates a lot of stress in people's lives. 51% of adults experience increased stress as a result of pressure to give or receive gifts around the holidays. Again, I think that one feeds into even the cost a little bit as well, especially as it relates to giving gifts around the holidays. And then the last one, nearly 25% of adults experience extreme stress around the holidays, according to a poll conducted by the American Psychological Association. So most Americans experience an increase in stress. And then you're talking about 1 in 4 adults experiencing extreme stress. And when I say extreme stress, I refer to that as distress. And so stress in general is not a bad thing. Stress is something that motivates us to get things done. If we experience zero stress in our lives, we would not be motivated to do much in our lives. And the example I give is, if I experienced no stress whatsoever, I would not take the time to, to research this presentation, to put it all together, to practice it, to prepare to present to you all. If I experienced no stress at all, I would just wing the whole thing and, who cares, that kind of attitude. Well, that's not the best way to approach life. And so we want to experience some level of stress, right? To motivate us. The problem is when that level of stress gets past a certain point and it starts to result in some of those consequences that were a couple slides ago, when we start to get the headaches and the poor concentration and a lot of those things. That's when it becomes distress and can be hazardous to our daily functions. That's what we're trying to avoid. And you will be able to tell, if you're being honest with yourself, you will be able to tell if you're experiencing that level of distress if you look at the consequences of what's going on. If you're having those headaches, if you're having trouble concentrating, if you're obsessing over the expectations, so on and so forth. Short temper being one of the big ones, it could clue you in as well. Short temper is an easy way to tell if you're experiencing a lot of stress. So I'm going to go back to the slide just for a second. So 25% of adults experiencing extreme stress around the holidays. This statistic from the American Psychological Association was from about 2 years ago. And there's not a whole lot of fresh data out yet about the impact that COVID has had on obviously holiday stress levels. But if 25% of adults are experiencing extreme stress prior to the pandemic, you would expect that number to be a little bit higher, if not a lot higher, this year, specifically because of the impact that COVID-19 has had on stress levels throughout the year. So some of the preliminary data is showing that, this is for COVID-19 specifically, that 30% of Americans are experiencing a decline in mental health right now. 45% of adults feel the COVID stress has negatively affected mental health. And then more than 50% of Americans worry about getting infected by COVID, losing their job, or the financial impact that COVID may have on their lives. So you factor that in with the holiday stress. And like I said earlier, you've almost created a perfect storm for distress in our lives around the holiday season. And that's why it is so very important that we look at different coping skills and look at how we can incorporate those coping skills into our lives and how we adapt our typical holiday season into something that's going to be safe for your family, your loved ones, and your friends. And I'll dive a little bit deeper into the impact of COVID. And this is from the CDC website. This was from 12/2, so it's a little bit older now. We're looking at about 16 days ago. They released an updated report on, this is after Thanksgiving, but before Christmas, an updated report on how to celebrate the holidays in a safe way. The report was pretty extensive and goes into a lot greater detail than I do in this presentation. I wanted to give you a couple highlights of it, and then I'll also give you some resources so that you can access that site and read the entire report if you would like to. But it was released on December 2nd. Cases are continuing to rapidly increase all over the country. The safest way to celebrate the holiday is at home with the people that you live with. And we will talk a little bit more about some strategies for doing that in a couple slides here when we talk about coping skills. This holiday season, consider how your holiday plans can be modified to reduce the spread of COVID-19. These suggestions from the CDC, I do want to say this, these are not to replace any state, local, territorial, or tribal health and safety laws, rules, or regulations. This is just meant to supplement. So I know, depending on where you are in the country, they have different state regulations and laws in place that govern some of the COVID-19 restrictions. So you always want to make sure you're following those, obviously. But the CDC did release this as kind of an umbrella so that you can supplement those rules and regulations pretty effectively. The big thing that I got from reading that CDC article is that celebrating virtually poses the lowest risk to the spread of COVID-19. It obviously reduces the risk to yourself and to your loved ones, your family, so on and so forth. I have a slide where we talk a lot about celebrating virtually and some ways in which you can do it that I've tested myself that have been very, very effective. And I'm going to share those stories with you just kind of as a way, hopefully, so that you may be more willing to try it in your lives as well. So the factors that contribute to the risk. This is if you do ultimately decide to include family or family outside of your direct family in your holiday celebration, or friends in your holiday celebration in person. Some of the factors that contribute to the COVID-19 would be the community levels, depending on where you live. What are the community levels of COVID-19? The potential exposure during travel. And so, whether you're traveling or people are traveling to you, there is a risk of exposure. The location of the gathering, is it inside or outside? Things like that are very important for reducing the risk of contracting COVID. Duration and number and crowding of people at the event. Behavior of the attendees prior to the gathering. And this is one that I wanted to elaborate on just real briefly, and that is we can control how we act and the measures that we take. Obviously, we can't control other people. So even if you are doing a lot of steps to protect yourself, if people come to a gathering that you're throwing, or people come to your holiday event, and they have not been protecting themselves as effectively as maybe you have, you're still you at a heightened risk for contracting COVID-19. And then the behavior of attendees during the gathering can have a big impact as well. Are they wearing masks the whole time? Are they staying apart from each other? Are they really close to each other? Things like that. Again, there was a lot more information on the CDC website, and it is a really, really interesting article, and it kind of breaks down all of the different techniques that can be used to improve safety around the holidays. So I do encourage you to use the CDC website as a resource if you want additional information on that. The article is Daily Life Coping with the Holidays. And again, it's pretty easy to find. You search CDC Daily Life Coping, but this link will obviously be in the presentation as well that will be on video. So you will have access to it regardless. One of my favorite holiday movies, The Nightmare Before Christmas. Again, we're trying to avoid a nightmare before Christmas with these coping skills and with the awareness of increased stressors that may exist in our lives. So hopefully it's not a nightmare before Christmas. I will say this, I never watched The Nightmare Before Christmas after Halloween. I consider it a Halloween movie. Other people consider it a Christmas movie. I don't know. I just like to watch it before Halloween. Still one of my favorite holiday movies. I kind of look like Jack Skellington because I'm very tall and skinny. So kind of an interesting take on that one. I should go as Halloween. I should go as Jack Skellington for Halloween, I guess. Okay. So moving on to the next part of the presentation, I really wanted to focus on practical tools and strategies for dealing with holiday stress. So we're going to hit on all of these different strategies, taking care of our bodies, which again is, in terms of practical and easily implemented, taking care of our body will be one of the easiest things we can do to reduce stress levels pretty significantly. Taking care of your thoughts, and so we'll use a couple different coping skills that will help us deal with our thoughts, our negative self-talk, things like that. Modify your behavior. Identify and engage with your support system. Identify and set boundaries, which is something that a lot of us could benefit from doing. Depending on if our boundaries are too loose or too rigid, we can always adjust them to reduce stress. And then embrace the various methods of virtual interaction. And again, for that slide, I do have a couple stories that I'll talk about how I've used virtual means to interact with family and friends, and just how effective it has truly been in my life. So first, take care of your body. Physical health matters greatly. Taking care of your body helps reduce stress. Quarantine has caused many people to move less. That being said, there are always ways you can stay active in your own home, and I'm going to review a progressive muscle relaxation technique that can be used to help you stay a little bit active in your home. There's obviously going on walks and things like that, getting out of the house that can be really positive in terms of reducing stress, whether that's around, and that can be applied obviously around the holidays or anytime really. Eating habits impact mood more than you think, and sleep restores the body. And I say it like this, at our very most basic level, what we need to survive, what a human being needs to survive. This is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, for those of you that are familiar with that. At our very on that triangle, at our very most basic level, what we need to survive, we need food, we need water, and we need sleep. Are we eating healthy? Not just junk food all the time, but are we eating healthy foods? Are we drinking enough water? And I don't mean coffee. I mean, are we drinking enough water throughout the day? You can't use coffee as a substitute. Again, that's a lesson I need to take for myself. But you always want to make sure that you're drinking plenty of water throughout the day. And am I getting enough sleep at night? And the big thing about sleep is it on a consistent schedule? Am I going to sleep at the same time each night? And am I waking up at the same time each morning? Even on the weekends, even on days that you don't work, you want to try your best. I'm not saying you can't cheat a little bit, but you want to do your best to stick to that schedule, that sleep schedule, as closely as you can. If you improve your eating habits, if you start drinking a little bit more water, or a lot more water, depending, and if you get on a really healthy sleep schedule, I guarantee those will be the easiest and potentially most impactful ways to reduce stress levels through the holiday season. We've all been around people who haven't gotten enough sleep and are irritable. You throw that in with all the stresses of the holiday, COVID, and again, you've created another perfect storm for yourself. We've all been around people that, in fact, there's a whole Snickers campaign about people getting angry if they haven't eaten enough food, right? We all know that people will get angry and will be short-tempered if they're not eating enough food or an appropriate diet, right? That's also one of the symptoms of anxiety and one of the consequences of anxiety. So again, without eating a healthy diet, you're creating another perfect storm for that, for some of those consequences of stress and anxiety in your life. So again, if you take nothing else from this presentation, sleep schedule, eating healthy, and drinking more water will be three things that you can easily implement that I promise you will have will cause huge reductions in your anxiety, stress levels throughout the holiday season. Okay. So a technique that we can use that is very, very effective for reducing stress in the moment. So these are times when you feel like it's all about to kind of boil over and you need to just stop and you need to do something. What can I do to just relieve the stress that's happening in this very moment? Well, there's something called progressive muscle relaxation. And this is a technique that's super, super easy to implement. You don't need somebody to walk you through it. You can do it by yourself and can be really, really effective at kind of resetting you, grounding you into the current, into the present moment, and reducing anxiety when it's starting to become distress. Again, we talked about stress versus distress. When you feel it starting to turn into distress, you start to get that short temper. You implement a strategy like progressive muscle relaxation. It'll help calm you down and bring you into the present moment. So you see in the picture here, this lady is laying down. In an ideal situation, sure, you could lay down. However, you do not need to lay down in order for this to be effective. It's not that I could do it right here sitting in this chair while I talk to you. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes. And basically what you're going to do is start with your toes, working your way all the way up your body. And you can see all the different areas that is touched on, starting with the feet all the way up to the legs, stomach, chest, shoulders, arms, hands, mouth, eyes, and forehead. What you do, starting with your toes, is you're going to tense your toes, curl your toes down for about 5 seconds, and then release for about 5 seconds. I always say to repeat each one twice if you have time for it. So you do the toes again for 5 seconds, and then release for 5 seconds. The whole time you're doing this exercise, you're also focusing on taking deep breaths in and out as you go out. So one way to make it really work is to breathe in while you're tensing your muscles for 5 seconds, and then to breathe out for 5 seconds while you're relaxing your muscles. And you're basically just going to work up your body throughout the exercise. Again, it takes 5 to 10 minutes. You'll start low with your feet, work all the way up, even to your face, and you can squint your eyes real tight for 5 seconds. and then release and relax the muscles. This will allow you to get rid of or alleviate a lot of that tense muscle, that you're feeling when you're experiencing that high level of stress. After you're done with it, you'll feel lighter, you'll feel energized, you'll feel a lot more relaxed. This is a super, super simple technique that anybody can use that can be really, really effective. And this is, again, for in the moment, when you're starting to experience that heightened level of stress, you feel it coming on, take 5 minutes, utilize an exercise similar like this one, the progressive muscle relaxation, and then you'll be able to continue with your day refreshed and ready to take on a new task, okay? I encourage those of you that have never tried a progressive muscle relaxation exercise to give this one a shot. Again, you're not gonna, but there's no harm in using and trying it. It only takes about 5 minutes. It can be super, super effective in the moment when you're dealing with some big stressors. Or if you want to reduce stress level, you can watch a good Christmas movie. Another one of my favorites, A Christmas Story. This is the one they play 24/7 on, I don't remember what channel, TBS or one of those channels. Holiday classic. Hopefully everybody's seen this one, but if not, it's definitely worth watching. Very enjoyable. And again, family friendly, everybody can watch this one. Okay, so we talked about body, and I introduced one coping skill for that. Next, I want to look at thoughts. So this is checking in with yourself. Is your talk negative or positive? What I mean by that is, are you reframing negative thoughts into positive ideas? If something doesn't work right or you make a mistake, how can you spin that into something that is positive, right? The example I can give is if you're baking cookies, maybe you overbake the cookies and they come out burnt. Well, you could say, oh my gosh, I can't believe I've done this. The holiday's ruined. Nobody's going to get cookies. Or you can say, okay, well, this gives me an opportunity to try a different recipe that maybe I haven't tried before. Or this gives me an opportunity to try those cookies from the store that everybody keeps talking about that seem to be so good. And so you reframe what would typically be a negative thought into something that is positive. If you can do that throughout your life on a regular basis, reframe all those negative thoughts into something that's positive, it will reduce stress and anxiety, and it will give you such a more positive outlook throughout your life. So I encourage everybody. That's one that we pressure patients to use quite a bit. Is we'll call them out on it. If they say something that's negative toward themselves, okay, hold on. Let's try and reframe that. How do we reframe that into something that's positive? If you're constantly trying to reframe all those negative ideas into positive thoughts about yourself, I promise you it will reduce a lot of the anxiety you're experiencing, and it will also build up your confidence level significantly. And so it'll show a huge increase in confidence, which again, an increase in confidence reduces anxiety in our lives. So it's a very, very positive skill to start implementing. Gain perspective by zooming out and looking at the bigger picture to assess what really are major barriers and problems versus minor inconveniences. So this is the idea of, you burnt the cookies. Well, let's zoom out of that picture, right? Let's look at the entire holiday season. Is burning the cookies really the end all? Is that the important thing here, or is the important thing getting to spend the holiday season with my family and love them and get them gifts or whatever it is that you're planning on for that holiday season. So when you zoom out, you can see, okay, burning the cookies is not really that big of a deal in the bigger scheme of things. That zooming out perspective game can be pretty effective as well. Practice mindfulness, deep breathing, or other techniques to help create calmness and quiet the mind when you are not working or during a break. Again, we talked about the progressive muscle relaxation, so I'll use that one. Practice a progressive muscle relaxation exercise throughout the day. See how effective it is for you. It's not, maybe it won't be the most effective the first time you do it, but if you continue to practice it, it will become more and more effective the more times you use it. Deep breathing is is a simple technique you can use that reduces anxiety. We have the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system inside our brain. When we utilize deep breathing exercises, and we do that, breathe in for 5, breathe out for 5, we do that for a couple minutes, we are actually activating the parasympathetic nervous system inside our brain, which is releasing the chemicals that will tell our brain to calm down. So it's the chemicals that actually counteract the fight or flight response. So when we do deep breathing, it's not just doing deep breathing for our own sake. What we're actually doing is telling our brain there's no threat. We can calm down. The fight or flight response can be kind of turned off, and it allows us to relax, and that will reduce anxiety pretty efficiently. So again, 2 minutes of deep breathing can make a huge difference in your life in terms of reducing stress, especially when you're dealing with the holidays and all that's going on this year. Positive self-talk helps to build self-efficacy, your belief that you can complete what you set out to accomplish. And I said this earlier, that kind of feeds into confidence levels. Self-efficacy is that idea that I can do this. I'm going to make it through this. I'm going to accomplish whatever my goal was. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm going to make it. So every time you're able to switch those negative thoughts into positive thoughts, every time you're able to check a box off of a goal that you had, all of those things build toward that increase in self-efficacy or that belief that I can do it. I'm going to make it. Meditating can be a wonderful tool that you can use to assist in terms of calming yourself in the moment if you have a couple minutes. And I'll walk through this one. I'm not gonna actually do the meditation with you. I'm just gonna read through this one. And I'm also gonna talk a little bit about something you use on your phone that can be pretty effective as it relates to meditation. So you would start by imagining yourself away from the stress. So you'd sit comfortably in a quiet room, ideally. Deep breathing for a few minutes to start out. Take 5 in, 5 out. Picture yourself in a place that conjures good memories. So for me, it would be sitting on a beach in maybe the Bahamas somewhere, right? What do I smell? What do I hear? What do I see? What can I touch? Right? I have my eyes closed. I'd be imagining all these things around me. Passively noticing the intrusive thoughts. So maybe as I'm doing it, this thought of burning the cookies floats through my head. Well, I can look at that. I could say, okay, and then I'll let it keep passing by. And then I'll refocus on the smells and the sounds of the beach in the Bahamas where I'm at, right? So it's not trying to eliminate. The goal is not to eliminate intrusive thoughts. It's okay. If it comes in, we're just going to let it pass by. And then we'll stay focused on where we're at in that meditation. Refocusing on the comfortable environment that you've created. And so you can do that for about 5 to 10 minutes. And then you take some deep breaths and slowly come out of it. And you'll feel, again, refreshed. Your anxiety levels will be decreased, and you'll be ready to take on or jump back into whatever task it was you were working on. Now that's a pretty simple meditation. There are a lot of meditations that are guided meditations that you can use on your phone. I'll talk about one resource here in a minute. But if you don't have a guided meditation or something like that, this can be used in replace of that, where you're kind of self-guiding yourself to that comfortable place, and you're able to picture the sun beating down on you, the sand around you, the ocean, the noise of the waves crashing, etc. That's my special place. So I don't know what yours is. You'd have to decide that for your own. Maybe it's the up in the mountains with the snow coming down, whatever it might be. Meditation can be a wonderful, wonderful way to kind of help yourself relax. It's a Wonderful Life, another one of my favorite holiday movies. Excuse me. 3 hours long. It's a or 3.5 hours long. Very, very long movie. I put this one in here because this is kind of your traditional holiday movie. This year, with the impact of COVID and some of those other things, how do we take a traditional Christmas and adapt it into something that's still going to be special and memorable this year with all that's going around us? So modify behaviors, be intentional, set 1 to 3 small goals for yourself. This is being realistic about your goals each day. That will reduce stress. If you put a million things on your list around the holiday season, knowing that there's going to be kind of random things that are going to pop up because it's the holiday season, if you set yourself up to do too much, the expectation is going to be too high. and then you won't be able to get everything completed. So setting 1 to 3 small goals, writing them down, and then being able to cross them off your list at the end of each day. That's a wonderful way, again, to relieve stress, but also to build that self-efficacy that I was talking about a couple slides ago. Self-care, do something nice for yourself around the holiday season. Go to the spa, whatever it is that you enjoy, do something nice for yourself. Giving back, do something nice for someone else around the holiday season. It can be very gratifying to help somebody else. Making a gratitude list can be another way to help reduce stress around the holiday season. And then these last two, which are always important, I talk about all the time, spending at least 30 minutes each day away from technology. And then no one can make you react or act a certain way. So not letting the little things get to you is very, very important. Don't give someone else the power to control your emotions and how you react. You get to be the one to choose how to react in a situation. And so you always want to make sure that you're reacting in a way that's healthy and that doesn't cause more problems than utilize your support system. Don't be afraid to show vulnerability. You can reach out to coworkers, supervisors. I'm a therapist, so I'm kind of biased, but I think every person on earth should be speaking with a therapist. I think it's incredibly healing, an incredibly powerful way to be able to process emotions and to relieve stress in your life. So I encourage everybody to utilize a support system, whoever it is. If it's a therapist, that's great, because it gives you an outlet. It gives you a person that you can talk to, so you don't have to carry all that weight, all that stress with just you. You can share it. You can unload it a little bit, talk about it, process it. Ask family or friends for help with anything that can be delegated. It's the holiday season. If you have family in town or you have children that maybe are getting a little bit older, they can help. Family can help. What can be delegated? What new thing? Maybe this is the year that they're old enough to try this thing, and take that off your plate for you. So being able to delegate certain tasks, again, reduces stress on you because then your to-do list gets a little bit smaller, and you're able to enjoy the holiday season more. Setting healthy boundaries for self. So the possibilities here, designating a log off and log on time. When you're done, you're done. So having separation from technology. Finding a space outside the home to work. Delegating other tasks to your support system. We talked about that a little bit. Deleting social media or apps during work or at certain times. Deleting social media apps during the whole work week. Scheduling an opportunity to FaceTime with friends and with family. I believe I'm going to talk about that one a little bit more here in a second. Scheduling a walk break. Wake up 15 minutes early so that you can enjoy a nice cup of coffee or eat a breakfast, and then no screens after dinner time. Those are some examples of some boundaries that you can put in place for yourself that will help, again, reduce stress. Setting boundaries with others. You really need to look at what kind of boundaries you have currently. What would you need for those boundaries to change into something that's a little bit more healthy? You see in the picture there's healthy boundaries, there's non-existent, limited or non-existent boundaries, loose boundaries, and then very rigid boundaries. So you have to identify where you are in your life with your boundaries. Are you very closed off from people, because that can lead to obviously isolation, or are you too loose and you take on too much burden from other people, which is going to increase stress levels? And then adjust those boundaries so that they're more in line with what healthy boundaries look like. The last, I'm about out of time here, and so the last movie I want to talk about was Die Hard. Again, some people would argue if it's a Christmas movie or not, but it was released around Christmas time. And so I am a fan of the Die Hard movies, at least the first one. The other ones were okay. A fun movie to watch, not kid-friendly, so I do not recommend that one around the holidays. Lastly, please take care of yourself. The holiday season, again, it can be very hectic, but it can also be very, very enjoyable, very fun, very loving time. If you implement some of these easy strategies that we just talked about, you can really reduce stress and make the holidays that much better, that much more fun and enjoyable for you and for your family. The last thing I was going to say is about virtual interactions. To avoid having family coming over to your house around the holidays, I do encourage you to use some of the virtual platforms like Zoom and things like that, to be able to interact with families virtually. It is so, so effective. I was a skeptic myself in the beginning. I started setting up Zoom calls with my family about once a week, once every 2 weeks. We all joined in these calls. We actually can play games with each other via the virtual platform. We have so much fun. We laugh. We are able to tell each other that we love each other. We're able to really interact on a personal level that I was not sure would be possible virtually. It's proven to be very, very effective. So I encourage you all this holiday season to really take advantage of some of those platforms. Try them out. See how effective they are for you. Interacting with family is so important, and in and of itself, it can reduce stress, being able to interact and share with family members. So I want you to do it. I want you to do it in a way that's safe and that protects the family members. And some of those virtual platforms can be a wonderful, wonderful way to do that. A couple references here. I did want to comment on this app, the Calm app. I said I was going to share something on your phone that you can use. This Calm app, I actually have this app. And you guys will have it now too. I believe you're getting an email sent to you, or I'm not sure exactly how it's being rolled out, but you guys will have access to that. This app is awesome. It has all kinds of guided meditations on it, relaxing music, wisdom, all kinds of really, really cool interactive features. One thing that I will comment that I really like about it, I'm a basketball fan, and LeBron James actually does some of the meditations on it, and so I actually listened to some of the LeBron James meditations, and they're very, very good. So it is and that's just one feature about it. But I did want to share that with you guys. I really encourage you to utilize this app, since it will be a resource for you. It has a lot of really, really cool features that you can use to help reduce stress around the holidays. So I appreciate y'all's time. I'm going to turn it back over to Judy, so that she can, if you guys have any questions, we can go through that Q&A real briefly here. Maybe not. Well, I'm not sure if we're going to have Judy on. I can try and exit out of the presentation and look at the questions if there are any there. Let me see here.
Hey, Phil, this is Donna. I don't see any questions.
Okay. No problem. If there are any questions, if anybody wants to put anything in, you're more than welcome. If you don't feel comfortable doing that and you would rather email them, you can email any question you have to Judy. Her email is up here on the screen right now, and she will get those questions to me, and I'll be able to provide you with a pretty extensive answer on whatever it is that you have a question about. It can be related to, obviously, this presentation or just mental health in general, and hopefully I can answer some of those questions for you.
Thank you, Phil. And we'll be sending out the recording to your HR, and they'll be providing that for you. If not later today, definitely early next week. Thank you for attending. Thanks, Phil.
No problem. Thank you all.